Nikki Turner, I'm calling the meeting to order now. And first, we're gonna do the oath of office.
And we'll need to do, so last night, Mr. Barman and Ms. Turner were appointed to a new 3-year term, and then Mr. Smith is filling the unexpired term of Mr. Yarborough, so the 3 of you will need to take oaths.
And I'll need a signature from each of you, just so we can file it in the clerk's office. And we can do it individually or all together, however y'all want to do it.
We can do it all together,
Okay.
if everybody's okay with it. Okay, that's fine.
Hold on, I'll think about that. I didn't think about it. Could have brought everybody by. We'll do one at a time.
Okay, one at a time.
Okay, so you're just gonna read yours and I'll read full this one.
Okay.
And you put your hand. I, Tony Smith,
I, Tony Smith,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith.
not inconsistent therewith.
I will faithfully discharge
And I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my
the
office
duties of my office
as clerk and as Board of Adjustment,
as Board of Adjustment
so help me God.
to Castle County Commissioners, or
I think that's the.
so help me God.
Okay, so we went to your oath and that'll be. Next, we will do me. We'll put your hand there. I, Nikki Turner,
I, Nikki Turner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
and maintain the Constitution
and maintain the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
my duties of my office
my duties of my office
as Board of Adjustment.
as Board of Adjustment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. And we have. Storm. Okay. This one here's your on.
Okay. Can I affirm?
You can. And then I'll correct it.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. I, Stephen Barman,
I, Stephen Barman,
do affirm
do affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and
of
laws
the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
my duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Board of Adjustment.
as Board of Adjustment.
So no. Okay, and then I will get you to sign that and stuff. So I gotta, sorry. Okay, I'll get everybody to sign just a little bit.
Okay.
So it's still your meeting. The next item is just the minutes of the previous.
Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna ask if I can get someone to approve it, right? Okay, we have to go over it.
Yeah, you'll just need a motion in a second and approval of the July 19th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Okay, can I get someone to approve, notes, well, a motion to approve notes for our last meeting, which was back in July of 2022.
So moved.
And you'll have a second,
Second.
and so they are approved.
And so I can take it from here if you'd like, just briefly.
Yes.
So the bylaws of the Board of Adjustment and Article 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance require that the Board of Adjustment appoint a chair and a vice chair for every calendar year that the board meets. This is your first meeting of 2023, and so even though it's been a while, this would be the appropriate meeting to appoint a chair and a vice chair. So if you want, I can entertain motions and manage the chair and vice chair, or you can, however you like to do
I
it.
think it's great.
Do we have a motion for chair?
I'd like to amend the agenda. I'd like to include alternate members' appointment by the Board of Commissioners. And I'd like to include discussion on $20 per member per meeting. As just like the other quasi-judicial board, planning board.
So just for the sake of clarification, this would amend the agenda to add item E
Yes,
as a message to the commissioners to appoint alternates to the board. And item F would be compensation for board members. And I'm sorry, did you specify an amount?
$20, same as the planning board.
Okay. So Madam Vice Chair, you would need, there's a motion,
Okay,
then a second. If there's a second for the motion, then there's open debate. And after debate, you can vote on the motion to amend the agenda.
okay. Do I have a second motion?
I can second to add those to the agenda.
Okay, and you said now we have to, everybody has to approve it.
If there's any discussion,
Any
then
discussion?
this would be the time to have discussion on the item.
Okay,
And then if there's no more discussion, then you can call for a vote.
is there any discussion?
This was brought up previously and for some reason died on the vine. I'm just readdressing.
So I know the alternates, I think, should be addressed and added to the board just for, based on work schedules, medical, family stuff, whatever the case may be, so that way business can move forward in somebody's absence.
Residents need functionality.
Yeah, and I can just add for context too. So typically, when you learn about these issues at the UNC School of Government, or you read general statutes, it's very common for a board of adjustment in particular to have alternates, because in a case like today, with a variance request, that requires a 4/5 vote of the board. So if you have even one absence, then you're in a situation where you would need a unanimous vote. If there's a sickness or an absence or a conflict of interest or a fixed opinion, then that would be the opportunity for alternate to step in the place of one of the permanent board members. And as I'm sure you guys all know, in a small town, it's easy to know just about everybody. So conflicts of interest may actually be easier, more likely to arise in rural settings than they would be in larger municipalities. Just a little context on state law and procedure.
It's always been an unpaid board.
Yes.
So Matt, what's the process of getting the alternate? Is it,
So basically, unless I'm mistaken, it would really just be that the Board of Commissioners would advertise for applicants similar to they do this body or any other board. Individuals would sit as alternates for a time certain, 3 years, which is a normal term. You guys would get the regular agenda packets, but they would also get the agenda packets. So they would be briefed on all of the issues and hypothetically be ready to go for any meeting should any sort of vacancy or conflict of interest arise. You can think of it as like an alternate juror
okay,
in a jury setting.
and how many alternates are we proposing?
I don't know that a number was specified, but I think you can do the same number that is on the board. 5 board members, 5 alternates.
I'm still trying to get one from the zoned area in your ICO also.
Yeah, that's something I would want to talk to the county attorney about, but since there's a requirement in the UDO that one of the board members be from the zone area, there may be also a requirement that one of the alternates be from the zone area, but that's something we can discuss with the county attorney.
Matthew, do you have a budget for these? Is that money set aside for this new budget item? Do you have the funds for that?
Well, this would be a new budget item. I have, I think, allocated annually $2,600 for the planning board. They make $20 per meeting. And that assumes permanent attendance for all 8 planning board members for all 12 months, which I never had. And I've also got 2 board members on the planning board who have denied compensation. So only 6 receive compensation when they attend. So it's always hard to predict the future, but I can't imagine that this will be a tremendous burden on the planning department budget if it were approved.
Since this board's inception, I believe, meetings that we've had, it would have cost the taxpayer a total of $560. Since what, year and a half ago?
Yeah, early 2021.
What's the exception?
The county commissioners used to serve as the board of adjustment until they voted to create it. So you've got a motion and a second and some good discussion.
So now you have to vote to add it
You
to.
got to vote to amend the agenda, and then once you get to those agenda items later on, then you can discuss them further.
Okay, and then I'm gonna call everybody's name individually.
You may, you don't have to. That was a little bit of a COVID era rule. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to.
Oh, okay, so I can
Just call for yeas and nays if you like.
okay, all right, for everyone that would like to vote to amend it, yea, nay.
Yeah, so I'll just clarify and then we can vote based on that. So the amendment would be to alter the agenda to add item E, which is discussion of appointment of alternates to the Board of Adjustment, and then item F, which would be a compensation of $20 per meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Clyde?
Yes.
So that's the motion you have.
Okay. So. Do you want me to go individually or how?
It's up to you, however you'd like to do it.
Okay, I can go individually, Stephen Burner,
Yeah.
John Claggett.
Aye.
Ray Shacker.
Aye.
Anthony Smith.
Aye.
Okay, and Nikki Turner, aye. So, it's voted to amend the agenda for everyone today.
And so now you're back on the election of chair and vice chair.
Okay. So you're gonna do that, right?
If you'd like me to.
Yeah, you can do that,
Yeah.
yes.
So now would be the time if any board members would like to make a motion to appoint a chair for the remainder of the calendar year. Now would be the time to do that. Or to nominate a chair, I should say. You can always rely on me for procedure.
I nominate, Ms. Turner.
I believe it's in keeping with Robert's Rules of Order if you want to reject the nomination for chair.
Well, can I wait to see if anybody else is nominated before?
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can do it by default. If nobody else is nominated, instead of just picking somebody.
So we have one nomination for chair. Do we have any other nominations for chair? Or just
Okay. I accept it.
so Ms. Turner is made chair by acclamation with no other nominations. We don't need to keep vote. So the next item would be the appointment of a vice chair. You want me to handle that?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so now would be the time, if you make a motion to nominate a vice chair to the Board of Adjustment. So the vice chair just serves as chair in the absence of the chair. UDO requires that you appoint a vice chair.
Can we draw a stick to anybody know or something?
I suppose you could do that once we come live. The easiest thing to do would just be make a nomination for vice chair.
That'd be the easiest thing, so I can just pick somebody.
You can nominate somebody.
Yes, we just pick somebody. I'm gonna nominate John.
Respectfully decline.
Can I nominate somebody else?
Sure.
Okay. Ray Shannon,
I also decline.
okay, good on the road. Burns,
I can do it if you need me to.
okay,
All right, so we have one nomination for vice chair with Stephen Barman. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? No nominations. So without any other nominations, Mr. Barman is appointed vice chair by acclamation. Congratulations.
okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Moving on with the rest of the agenda. It was not my intentions today, to,
Chair.
be the chair. So is it, what can we do? Because I need to get adjusted to what I'm,
If you,
verbiage and things.
as we go through the agenda, if you just kind of want to announce the item that we're discussing and, just follow right along with the agenda. And then if you want to send it to me for context and background, then I'll be happy to elaborate.
All right, that's what we're gonna do today.
So we're now on item B under new business.
We have to have an appointment of secretary.
Yes, ma'am. So the UDO, after electing a chair and vice chair, the UDO requires that you appoint a secretary to keep the meetings, the minutes of these meetings. As you may recall, when the board was first created, you guys appointed Amy Lyle, our administrative assistant, committee secretary. We have gotten to a point in the office where we have so many walk-in customers and so much demand that it's been decided that Amy will stay in the office and we will rely on the recorded technology to then go back and
Oh,
type up the meeting minutes later.
okay.
So probably the best thing for the board to do would be to appoint me as secretary of the board of justice.
Okay. Like make a nomination or anything, or we just appoint you?
I think you can either nominate or appoint, and unless there's an objection or another individual that's nominated, it's really just kind of a formality.
Okay, I would like to appoint Mandy Oakland as secretary.
Second.
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
All those in favor?
All those in favor say aye. Okay, next item, item C, new meeting location. And, we'll have Matthew Evelyn for contact.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. So as you guys received in my email a few weeks ago now, and as I discussed with you, the planning department had recently moved to the lower level of the health department. And in our building now is a relatively large meeting room, probably about the size of this portion of the meeting room once the wall is closed here. I think 4 of the 5 of you have been by to visit. There's a smart TV there. There's plenty of seating. There's handicap access right outside. There's a couple of bathrooms. I think it would be a nice meeting location, especially given the small nature of most of our meetings. And perhaps most importantly, it would alleviate some of the pressure off of this room. This is a very important meeting room, an often booked meeting room for the county. So technically what you would be doing if you decide to move forward with this is you would be amending the rules of procedure for the Board of Adjustment there in section 2 of the regular meetings. It specifically says the location is the county library. You would be entertaining a motion to amend the rules of procedure to change that to the planning department conference room.
Okay. Now, do I have to second, get in the second motion or?
If you can do a motion and a second,
Okay,
and amending the rules of procedure to change the location.
okay, so I'm amending the, second,
Amending the rules of procedure
we're amending the rules of procedure.
to change the meeting location to the planning department.
To the planning department.
Make a motion.
And we had a second,
A second.
and now we all have to vote together, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, all those 4, aye, opposed, nay. Okay, so we have a new meeting location this time. That's gonna be where Matt said that's gonna be there in the department. And our next meeting will be there if we have anything next month.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so time to one item number 8. At this point, we're gonna talk about the Alvarez variance petition. And I can turn this over to Matt
Yes, ma'am.
as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you would like, one of the items that's required for a variance hearing is that all parties who wish to speak or are claiming standing to be sworn in prior to the hearing, including myself. If you would like, we can do that now, or I can read the memo related to the variance hearing, and we can do that after I read, but we will need to do that prior to any other individual speaking on
Let's go ahead and do that first off, so.
the swearing in. Okay. Do you have that? Where this all just is on the.
So you can do this individually, or you can do this as a group. This is really just the oath. I state your name, swear or affirm. This one, I'm gonna give you the truth, and just that final sentence.
Okay, do they get to choose whether they're gonna, everybody's gonna do it together or what they like? Whose choice is it? My choice. Is it.
It's really your choice.
Okay, so what we're gonna do it all together, so it's gonna be you. Do I need to get everybody to introduce themselves first? before-
If you'd like, you can certainly do that.
If I could get you all to introduce yourself so we can be familiar with who you are in your relationship to the petition.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get everyone to introduce themselves in relationship to the
Okay.
petition. That way we'll understand who's here tonight. So you want to start.
My name is Christopher Alvarez.
Okay,
So my name is Fran Johnson and I'm Chris's real estate agent.
okay,
Yeah, and Chris is the purchaser of this property.
okay. So at this time, we're
And
gonna,
Madam Chair, we do have a couple of other, 3 other individuals. Do you guys plan to speak on the issue at all today? Do you think you may speak on the issue at all today?
Not sure.
Okay,
This is my
If
first
you-
variance hearing, so.
so just procedurally, so we'll be sworn in, myself and these 2 individuals will be sworn in now. If you wish to speak later, we can accommodate that. We'll just have to stop what we're doing and you'll have to be sworn in as well before you provide testimony. Okay, so you're certainly welcome to later, but we just have to do the swearing in as a matter of procedure.
so if it's okay, we're gonna do it all together, so it's gonna be Dr. in there. So you can repeat after me. I, please state your name.
Chris Alvarez.
Swear or affirm
Swear
that the testimony
that the testimony
I will give today is the truth
I will give today is the truth
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
She says you may swear all parties in the group or at one time, so that's the end of it, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right there.
Okay. Okay.
Shorter than we thought.
Yeah. And so at this point, you're gonna continue on right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Board members, applicant Chris Alvarez is requesting a variance from the provisions of subsection 9.56.19.3.4.2 of the Unified Development Ordinance, otherwise known as the UDO, which requires that a structure's side setback line be at least 15 feet from a property line. The variance is being requested for a proposed minor subdivision of the property at 2262 North Carolina Highway 57 North in Milton, which would create a new 1.76 acre lot and a 1.01 acre lot respectively. These are labeled lot 1 and 2 respectively on the preliminary subdivision plat in your agenda packet as well. Mr. Alvarez is seeking to divide this property in order to accommodate certain title and loan requirements and eventually purchase the property. However, the proposed division of the lot would create nonconformities for both proposed lots 1 and 2, and nonconformities may not be approved administratively. For lot 1, all provisions of the county subdivision ordinance are met, other than the side yard setback of 15 feet. On the preliminary plat, you will see a side setback of just 13.9 feet. And for lot 2, 2 residential structures encroach significantly into the property and create an even more severe side yard setback violation. Like lot 1, all other applicable subdivision requirements will be met. In addition to the attached preliminary plat, you will find the document submitted by the applicant's real estate agent, Fran Johnson, entitled Summary for Variance Request for 2262 Highway 57 North, Milton, North Carolina 27305. The sections of this document are arranged to correspond with sections 4.2.2 of the UDO, which detail the standards by which a variance may be granted. Pursuant to the UDO, section 4.2.8, and state law, a 4/5 vote of the board is necessary to grant a variance. At this time, Madam Chair, I would like to enter all documents related to the variance into the public record unless there is an objection. And in particular, I will note that if there is an objection to entering the email from the property owner dated June 12th, 2023, then the time to make such an objection would be now. I would also like to note that a hearing notice sign was placed at the property and letters notifying adjoining property owners of the hearing were mailed in a timely manner to satisfy statutory requirements. Finally, for the board's consideration, I will read section 4.2.2 of the UDO, which outlines the criteria for granting a variance. Quote, when unnecessary hardships would result from carrying out the strict letter of the UDO, the Board of Adjustment shall vary any of the provisions of the ordinance upon a showing of all of the following. 1, unnecessary hardship would result in from the strict application of the ordinance. It is not necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. 2, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or to the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. 3, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing property with knowledge that circumstances that may justify the granting of a variance shall not be regarded as a self-created hardship. And 4, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. As you deliberate today, board members, please evaluate the variance request on each of these criteria and make a determination on each for the public record. And with that, Madam Chair, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about these documents before we hear from the applicant or any of the parties. So now would be the time to hear from the applicant, unless the board has any questions of me about procedure or the agenda packet or any documents. You're certainly free to ask that.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would be the time to either debate the variance, that question, or hear from the applicant if they wish to weigh in on the variance request.
So we can start off by hearing from that.
This may.
So,
Madam Chair, I just, excuse me, Mr. Matthew, if I could ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Under the Article 4.2222, et cetera, the hardship. So what you just read, you felt under the qualifications of what the request meets those qualifications, does it not?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
The
question.
petition, they're asking for a variance.
Correct.
Under the definition you just read, what their petition meets those qualifications.
So I cannot make a subjective determination on whether or not they meet the criteria for a variance. That's the board's responsibility. The reason that the issue is before the board is because I cannot approve a non-conforming minor subdivision, which would be necessary to alter the lots in a way that I believe allows Mr. Alvarez to close on the property to purchase. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Okay,
so these are
You
just,
ask it.
yeah, these are just criteria that we're supposed to be.
that's correct. Yeah. So I don't get to weigh in on whether or not the variance should be granted. I basically present you with the evidence and you make that determination.
So I did have a question, just to make sure I understand it correctly. So because if you look at the old GIS, there's no, basically with what lot 1 and 2 are together currently. And it shows no encroachment of structures from the property that would be to the south. So they did a new survey, the Boswell survey, and then they showed that basically what was recorded in GIS, it was shifted some.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you look at these properties on the GIS map, I believe there is an encroachment on the GIS. But the caveat, the disclaimer that you'll see on the county's GIS side is that this is not an official document. These are not, perfectly exact official records. Typically, when you're talking about surveying lot lines, you have to rely on either an engineer or a licensed North Carolina surveyor. And so that's the product that you have before you is a preliminary plat produced by Eddie Boswell, who is a licensed North Carolina surveyor.
Who's the current property owner?
Can I answer that question?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody that cares to answer.
This should be the Piedmont Mobile Home and Supply. Correct.
That's correct.
And that property was purchased by them in October of 22.
I'm not absolutely sure when he purchased it. I'd have to go back and look at my information, but yes, it was sometime last year. They didn't get a survey and they were unaware of this issue.
Okay. So if there was not an awareness of the issue before us, and there was no survey done prior to Mr. Alvarez, there's nothing to compare it to. And the memo spoke of due diligence. I know when I purchased my property, I had to have a survey. This was a long time ago. Are the adjoining landowners present? I'd like to hear from the adjoining landowners about their feelings towards this. I mean, obviously, there's some interest if landowners present.
Ma'am, would you like to speak?
Okay. You go ahead and swear you in. All right, you ready? Because I did state your name.
I don't
Swear or affirm
swear or
that the testimony I will give today
that the testimony I will give today
is the truth and nothing but the truth.
is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
How do you feel about this, man?
To take your point about the survey. I grew up in that area and the original property line, in fact, I lived there. The property line did not, what I'm seeing here was not the original property. So I don't know how over the years that line was moved. But when it was sold, I can't remember what year, when it was sold originally, I don't know if they did a survey, but I do remember where the property was, and that's not where it's represented. There was an iron, like you said, the iron stocks there. I don't have an issue with them granting the variance. I'm just concerned that those property lines are not reflecting what was originally there. So my grandfather owned all of that property, and he gave those acres to his children, and they subsequently sold them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Make sure we're all on the same page.
Yes, ma'am.
So currently with lot 1 and lot 2, they're together.
That's
They
correct.
haven't been split. This is the proposed plan from Mr. When Mr. Boswell did the survey. And so the Piedmont Mobile Home Supply, are they supplying the manufactured home as well, or
Well,
because they're on the land, correct?
so the home that's on lot 1
Right,
was already existing
Okay,
when Piedmont Mobile and Home Supply bought the property.
okay,
Instead of, I think maybe the guy that owned it before, sort of speaking from hearsay information that I've heard along the way through this transaction, sort of got a little bit of a financial thing, and so he came in and bought the property from them, and probably paid cash for it.
okay,
They didn't have a loan on it, so they had to get a survey and everything after that.
okay.
So when we came along, we are getting a survey. I mean, we are getting a loan. And so I encouraged Chris to get a survey. He wasn't required to get one. He thought it was prudent since nothing had been surveyed in a very long time in that area for him to do so. So he agreed, and we discovered these encroachments. Well, what has happened as a part of that is that the title insurance company, even though it's the same title insurance company that insures the title now, since the survey has been done and they now know that they are encroachments there, they will not insure over the encroachment. So we can't get title insurance, and because we can't get title insurance, the lender will not make the loan, because they will not take a title policy that has exceptions for encroachments. And I do have a letter from our closing attorney that states that, and I have a copy for each member. And I also have a copy from the lender that says, we can't make this loan unless those things are cleared up. And so I was,
Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have a copy that you can provide the individuals in the back of the room as well?
I'm sorry, I just made enough for the board members unless somebody wants to share.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure that you have the opportunity to look at it.
So we tried to figure a way around these issues, and so that the best process that we could come up with would be to do a minor subdivision and take off an acre, so that we could have the lot 1 free and clear for the lender to make a loan on.
Okay.
So that would be the purpose. That way we wouldn't have the encroachments on that lot, and we could get clear title on lot 1, and we could move forward, with our loan.
We only look at lot 2, that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because it's part of the minor subdivision, it has to meet UDO requirements and things like that. So the lot would still get transferred over from Piedmont Mobile and Home Supply, lot 2, but it wouldn't be subject to any loan, so we wouldn't have an issue with the title. But because we're dividing it and it creates a non-conformity as far as the UDO, we would need the variance for the encroachment. So what we try to do as we've divided this is to make sure that everything else other than these side yard setbacks, which we can't do anything about unless we move all the structures, which it's a very nice brick home. It's basement. I mean, it just would be very difficult to push it over 34 feet. And so we are asking for the variance for the side yard setback for lot 2 as well. But all the rest of the lot meets all of the UDO requirements, the road frontage, the acre, and all of that. And it also sets us up for the future, because we're not adversarial with the neighbor next door. We certainly want to set ourselves up for the future to work things out with her so she can be made whole here. And so if we leave that lot open like that here, we would be able to do that in the future.
So when I look at, so are you purchasing both? You're purchasing this whole area is gonna be split into 2 lots, correct?
Yes, if you look at, okay, sorry, I tried to come prepared. If you, now,
Well, you have copies for everyone. You can hand out whatever you like.
this is the GIS overlay. And it is not survey, but it maybe help you kind of get acclimated, and So that's kind of the tax map from off the GIS, and that square lot in the middle with the star in it. That is this, that would be representative of this whole lot, not divided.
Okay,
So he's purchasing the whole thing. We're just dividing it so that we can make a loan on one and not make a loan on the other.
okay, so I see on here is a brick house. Does that go with lot two, the brick house that's on?
No, no,
Whose house is
that
that?
house belongs to the neighbor to the south.
So that's
And that would be the lot,
Right.
that would be the lot labeled A on the preliminary
Yeah.
plat.
And that's owned by Doris Stanfield.
That's 0.7 acre parcel.
And so there's another mobile home on here as well, correct?
Well, on her lot,
Two.
yes, that what encroaches over onto lot two is the brick home, the mobile home, and all of her well. So we are working to make sure we have enough space so that we can work things out with her at a future date. We called Ms. Stanfield. I mean, that was when we discovered this, it was my first thing. It's like, if we can go ahead and work something out with her, we would even be sitting here today, but it caught her by surprise. Because she was unaware of this, did not realize it, and she's had to work things in her mind, and there's some issues from talking with her that she's got to get straightened out. And from talking with her, I do know that she has a desire to move this mobile home. But she's working to get some things straight so that she can do that within the law.
Well, and septic affected.
Affected lot two.
Yes.
I mean, when you said affected, you mean, so well and septic on lot two. Her well is right, but not her septic.
Well, I mean, it's currently on the whole thing, so whether we divide it or don't divide it, the well is still encroached. The house would still be encroached and the mobile home would still be encroached, so dividing it or not dividing it doesn't make any difference there.
So to get your loan, you have to get variance on lot 1 foot 3 inches.
Well, because we're doing this minor subdivision, it brings everything up for, I guess, approval. So while we were looking at this, I noticed that this side yard setback from this is a double wide manufactured home that was currently on lot 1, which is what Chris was purchasing to start with. And we discovered that was a 13 foot 9 inch side yard setback. It should be 15. So that was already existing.
You got to have that variance in order to buy. But you don't have to have the other variance. You can allow them to encroach on the property, right? The brick home, since you buy that piece of property too.
Well,
Don't affect the title insurance.
I don't know that the title insurance would mind if the home is 13 feet 9 inches from the property line as opposed to 15. That's just more of a county ruling that we have, but I think they are taking issue with the significant encroachment of 2 properties. That's
Okay,
well, I mean, and honestly, the encroachment over onto lot 2, except for the side yard setbacks for us to meet UDO requirements. It's not that big a deal. But it's a big deal for the next door neighbor, and we certainly want to be, open and play nice to make sure things get straightened out there. It's a problem for her.
But the reason why you're separated is that he's trying to get a loan on his first, that second line, he's not getting, I'm assuming he's not getting a loan on that, so you're gonna deal with that at a later time. But the reason why we're here all at the same time is because it's gonna catch. If we allow this, then there's gonna be 2 non-conforming lots.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, my understanding is once we go to this minor subdivision, we have to work to try to make it conforming, and those 2 things are non-conforming, and there's nothing I can do about it. So it's the side yard setback on both lots.
Matt, is there any original, I guess the survey before this, is that recorded or available anywhere?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the survey previous to this, the most recent records on these lots dates back to maybe the 1940s or 50s. And when I took a look at it briefly, it didn't seem very similar to this new survey at all. And that's not entirely uncommon over the years. It really before like the late, typically about the late 1970s, surveys could be pretty unreliable.
So do y'all have this? You have this in your packages, right? So if you look to the south and you see the little dotted line that's labeled, you know, where it's got the little box, it says the brick house with the basement. And you see the little dotted line that's sort of a little trapezoid kind of thing.
Yeah, label as alpha.
Yeah.
Yep, A, yes. So I did go back and look up that, and I had the original survey from when it was deeded. And the original survey is exactly what this is.
So you're down here, it says A, you said reference A, what were you saying about that? I'm sorry, it took me a little while to get there.
That's reference A. That's just to give you an idea
Oh, okay, got it.
of this survey is relative to original surveys, because this is the original survey of lot A. That's recorded in the register of deeds. I went there and looked it up, printed deeds, that's where they.
So curious, what do you think the outcome will be with lot 2? Because that's gonna be the next situation.
Lot 2, our plans are, once we get this all closed and Ms. Stanfield, who owns A, kind of gets all her things together, I think what she has to do is get a title to that mobile home. Because what we would like to do is work things out with her to where we sell her enough of lot 2.
Okay, gotcha. So that's on her property.
That incorporates her brick home and her well and gives her a 15-foot side yard. And then we will just recombine the rest of it back into lot 1. That's what our plan would be. She just has some work to do before we get there.
What if the city comes?
This,
Yes, please.
I just want to state for clarification's sake too, that the board is not granting any sort of variance or reprieve for lot A.
Right.
For the lots in question. They would still have an encroachment, they would still have issues to work on in the future. This would only be for the lots labeled 1 and 2 on the preliminary plan.
what we would hope to do with leaving lot 2 kind of open is to give some latitude to be able to work all that out without having to come before this board to allow Doris time enough to get all of her ducks in a row. And just really be able to go through the planning department and do I guess, staff approval of that, and unless we find something else becomes necessary.
But there is a structure on 2 that runs across A.
Well, it's the structure on A runs across 2.
Well, when I see most of it on 2,
Yeah.
that's why I say it's that way.
Except for the structures.
Because it's majority of whatever's on 1.
Okay.
If it's 40 feet on 1 and 20 feet on the other,
Yeah,
it's the majority of 1's running on the other.
right,
So the majority of it's on 2 is running on A.
right. But it's supposed to be on A. And the well is supposed to be on A, and all the mobile homes is supposed to be on A. And I think people just probably needed property and they didn't do surveys, and so it just got a little mixed up, but you know, we're just trying to be the first step, trying to fix it.
Ms. Stanfield or anyone representing Ms. Stanfield's not here today.
I thought Doris was gonna be here, Mom, maybe she did.
You're under contract and everything, that's correct?
We are, and we really need to be closing by about the middle of July. We're gonna run out of funds. We've already been working on this about 6 weeks.
Sorry.
I mean, neither Chris nor the current owner had any knowledge of any of this, and we've tried to work hard to do this subdivision and set things up so that every other part of the UDO could be met, with the exception of these side yard setbacks. And you can see that the encroachments are pretty particular to property, and it's not much we can do about it. It really be a hardship to try to move them. So it's in everybody's interest to try to work together and resolve it.
Mr. Alvarez, where do you stay at?
Little with my father, correctly.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, we had his house, we had his, he was under contract with contingency to sell his house, so he's already sold his house, closed on it, moved, and didn't have a place to go while we fix this.
But I know the well and septic tank is in question on lot 2 with lot A, but Ms. Alvarez has his own well and septic tank for
We did,
this lot, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Clarify that.
Looks like it's slightly pressed there. Gotcha. Of the structure, is house.
And too, I'm sure it happens all the time with this confusion on property lines and so forth. And so when it goes back, government didn't know, has the law read as far as serving where, is that ever a case where you can grandfather an easement or property line, or is it always cut and dry?
Well, anything that's non-conforming as it exists today is allowed to remain in non-conformity as long as they don't create any new non-conformities of new activity on the lot. If a non-conforming lot exists as it is today, and they wanted to enlarge it or alter the property lines in any way, all aspects of that change must meet the modern definition in a subdivision ordinance. So just with this as an example, they've got a 0.7 acre lot. If they try to enlarge it to a 0.9 acre lot, then it would still be short of the 1 acre minimum lot size that the subdivision ordinance requires. We cannot approve that. So typically non-conformities, if somebody presents us a non-conforming situation that they're looking to alter in any way, we say you have to bring it up to the current standard in all aspects, otherwise we can't.
Now, lot 1 has a current manufacturer double wide, correct?
correct,
You're not replacing it.
no,
Now, if he was going to replace it and got closer to the line or closer, what have you, get us with that 15 feet, then he would have to conform to the.
Correct, yeah. If you want to replace that house, it's got to be at least 15 feet. from the property.
Okay.
but that home actually has been detitled, and so it's part of the real estate.
Say that again.
The manufactured home that's on there has been detitled. In other words, they've done away with the title and it's become a part of the deed.
So
That would kind of be unlike the home that's on the adjacent property. Is, it does have a title, but the title is lost right now. I think they're trying to find it so they can get it transferred over so it can be.
Does anybody stay in that one? Or no?
I don't know.
you're the home you're looking to purchase.
2013, I believe, sir.
Mr. Alvarez, you're not considered disabled.
No, sir. Question for me?
Yes, sir. So what's the procedure now? Because I'm assuming everybody has been asked all the questions.
So procedurally, if the discussion is over, then you may proceed to deliberating specifically on the variance criteria. You may want to close the hearing first and then do that, but I don't think you're required to close the hearing first and then deliberate on the variance criteria. But again, as I mentioned in the opening, I would recommend that the board evaluate this variance based on each of the 4 criteria separately. So item 1, yes or no, item 2, yes or no, item 3, yes or no, item 4, yes or no.
So your the summary that was presented before laid those out accordingly to try to make it a little bit easier. So. So you review that, or if you would like, I can hit.
Yeah. Do. I got some paper in front of me here. Find it. Yeah. It's that section down there. What you do.
So you said I could close out the discussion now.
Yeah, if the discussion is ended and it's time for the board to deliberate, that you
So,
close off the hearing, and then the board would deliberate and decide the criteria, the variance based on the criteria.
so is there any particular way I can say it?
I would just ask if there's anyone else that wishes to speak or add any additional testimony.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak or have additional testimony?
So a motion to close the hearing.
Oh, I'd like a motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion.
In a second,
Second. All in favor?
all in favor? Okay, so where do we go?
So again, I would just recommend that the board decide the yes or no on the variance one by one based on the criteria in article. And on the document that I just passed out, about 2/3 of the way down, you see each of the variance criteria spelled out.
Okay.
So from a procedural standpoint, that would look something like based on criteria one, that unnecessary hardship would result from strict application of the ordinance. I make a motion that, yes, we grant the variance based on this criteria because X, Y, and Z conditions exist. Or no, we do not grant based on this criteria because X, Y, Z conditions exist.
Okay, so you want us to go down
Each individual one, yes,
one
ma'am.
by one, and vote on it.
Correct. Unless you want to make one super motion that encompasses all of them. But that's a little harder to do than to go one by one. And just because this is the type of thing that can hypothetically be appealed to Superior Court, which is very important to have a very precise documentation, right?
Okay.
Do you have input on criteria?
I cannot give any sort of opinion on the criteria, but if, for example, if the board is deliberating whether or not they think a certain condition exists, I can certainly give you context into how UDO regulations or the subdivision ordinance applies, and why we would or wouldn't make an administrative decision based on the materials that are in front of them.
Do we discuss each item and then we vote?
You may do it that way, or you may just do it one by one.
I think it would be good if we do each one and then discuss it. And then vote it. So how would I say that? Or how would I, as far as procedure, how would I do that?
So I think you just asked on criteria number one, as to whether or not an unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. You may ask if any board members have any motions to that effect, yes or no,
Okay,
and then some sort of evidence
Okay.
to verify, to support why they would approve or deny.
okay. All right, so let's start. So item number one that says the unnecessary hardship will result from the strict application of the regulation. It is not necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. Now we just have, we need to discuss it.
Yeah, so you would ask if there's a motion to approve
Is there a motion to approve
the
it
variance based on that criteria and why,
and why?
or a motion to deny the variance based on that criteria and why.
And then we'll go around individually.
Yeah, if anybody wants to make a motion,
Oh, okay.
they can just do that. But certainly when it comes time to vote, you'll need to,
All right,
you'll need to get together on it.
okay. So item number one, is there anyone that wants to make a motion to approve it or deny it?
I make a motion that we, there's no item.
And can you point to any specific evidence as to
Well-
why item one is true?
Unnecessary hardship things good out with property. Property.
Do I need to get this motion in second or do I need to?
I would recommend second motion and entertain anything.
Okay, and you'll have a second and any debate on it?
I'll second the motion to approve based on criteria one. Just from the fact that after the survey revealed this, you cannot reasonably move those structures based on the encroachment.
Is there any discussion that we need to have? Ivan?
Yeah, now's the time for discussion.
All right, if there's no discussion, at this point, we can vote. Okay, all right, so we'll start off with, this one,
We're voting to approve based on what
right,
I.
okay. Mr. Clapp,
Aye.
Mr. Sharpman,
Aye.
and Mr. Smith. And Nikki Turner, aye.
All right, item number two.
All right, item number two, that says the hardship results from conditions that are particular to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. A variance may be granted when necessary and appropriate to make a reasonable accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Act for a person with a disability. Can we start with nominations to approve it or deny it? Based on it,
I can make a motion to approve based on criteria two.
So what specific conditions exist to make criteria two?
So I think the conditions that were found after the fact from the new survey are what is peculiar to the property itself.
is there anyone second?
Sorry.
Is there any discussion? Okay, so at this point, we're gonna vote again. So we're gonna go. Ms. Barman,
Aye.
Mr. Claggett. Mr. Sharpman.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And Nikki Turner, aye. Okay, so we're gonna be moving on to item number three, which is the hardship did not result from the actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. the actions of purchasing property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of variance is not a self-created hardship. Do you have a motion to accept it or deny this?
So I would make a motion to approve based on criteria 3.
And what specifically about criteria?
So the hardship did not result from actions taken, so they aren't. Especially they purchased the property, had a survey created, and then it didn't knowingly purchase the property with knowing this was discovered after the fact. For how the encroachment issues on the southern part.
Thank you.
Yes,
Can I second one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I like to second it because I think with this, he just didn't walk into it, he did his due diligence. With finding out the information before he purchased it, so I like to second that, we grant the variance based upon item number 3. Is there any discussion?
You're doing great.
Thank you. So at this point, we can vote. So Ms. Farmer.
Aye.
Ms. Claggett.
Aye.
Ms. Sharpen
Nay.
and Mr. Smith. And I. Okay, moving on to item number 4. The requested variance is consistent with the stated purpose and intent of the regulations such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. We do have a motion to approve it or deny it based on item number 4.
Make a motion that we're approved based on item 4. Because I think he's here today, Western variance is consistent. Spirit, purpose, intent of the regulation, that's for variance.
I like to second that because I think again, he's done his due diligence. When dealing with public safety, because he's contacted, the other homeowner, tried to work with the other homeowner on it. Kind of just don't work out with the other homeowners. But I do feel like that as far as him trying to do that, that he has accomplished that. Is there any discussion for this item? Item 4. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna vote. So, starting out with Ms. Foreman.
Aye.
Mr. Clark. Mr. Schaffner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
I am Nikki Turner.
Congratulations. So we did have one nay vote on item number 3, but being that it was still approved with a 4/5 majority, then all of the criteria for the variance are found and approved. And as soon as I can, I will get the variance approval in writing and delivered to you at my earliest convenience. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One second. At this point, we're gonna go over item number E.
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am.
What was item number E? Was that the alternates or was that the
Yes, item E was the discussion of requesting that the board of commissioners appoint alternates to the board of adjustment.
So what's the verbiage or what do I need to? Say about that?
That is a good question. I'm trying to recall, obviously this issue came up a year or more ago, and I'm trying to recall exactly how it was handled. I don't know if I wrote a letter and Chairman Yarborough signed it and sent it to the commissioners, or if it was, do you recall?
Yeah, I think the letter was submitted to the commission.
Okay, so perhaps the best way would just be to instruct me to draft a letter. And then you as chair can sign the letter and we'll transmit that to the board of commissioners for their consideration.
Okay, all right then.
And before we do that, sorry, I don't mean to jump procedure. But given that the next item on the agenda is also a request of the commissioners, it may be prudent for the board to just make one motion to instruct me to include both items in the letter.
Right, so.
But you can handle it however you like.
Yeah, I like to do it together. So at this point, only thing I have to say is we're gonna discuss item E and F, which is gonna be alternates and compensation. Then I'm gonna open it up for discussion. Okay, and then I'd like to open it up for discussion. Do I have to, I'm sorry, do I have to dismiss them if they wanna go or anything?
They're free to go.
They're free, oh, okay. See, I'm doing it all, I'm dismissing people, I'm
Thank you.
opening.
After the hearings. The big things if you work.
Probably at the comedy club next week. Okay, so. All right, so it's open for discussion, item number E and F, which are the alternates and the compensation. Mr. Clark, did you have something else that you want to say about it?
Well, this, like I said before, this was discussed previously and died on the vine. And the only other quasi judicial board is planning board. They're compensated $20 per member of the meeting, which is, you know, as far as I'm concerned, before I come to a board of adjustment meeting, I have to do a lot of research, and some of that is driving different process. It's and to date, since not including this meeting, but all the meetings prior to this meeting, since this board's inception, has come to a whopping total of $560. I don't think $20 per member per meeting is exorbitant. I think it's it would entice people, the public, to apply for the board. You know, thinking that the county does have some worth in this board. And the alternate members would give the residents of this county some functionality. Because for unknown reasons, like was explained earlier, if one person can't be here, and I was almost that one person today, then it would take a unanimous vote on a four-fifths criteria. You know. And if we had all alternates, then that's not an issue.
I think it's unreasonable, especially with the alternates, so we would be able to get, to be honest, we don't have a lot of them. So we like to service them as quickly as possible when we do have. I don't think $20 is unreasonable.
Yeah.
I like to have Snickers bar, but yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable. Do we need to vote on it at this time, or more discussion, because I think.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, if we want to kind of follow the same form that the board did the last time, I think maybe to instruct me to draft up a letter and then the chair can sign that letter if the rest of the board members are comfortable with that.
So the only thing I have to say is, maybe I'd like for you to draw up a letter, draft a letter. Just speaking in reference to having alternates and requesting compensation of $20 per for board members and alternates. And then I can sign it if everyone's okay with that. Need a second, do we need to vote on it individually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there anyone second?
I would say.
Okay. And so now we'll take a vote. And let's go to the vote. And Ms. Brown,
So for, just to make sure that's correct, for approval to go for commissioners for alternates and the compensation.
and Matthew, you write the letter for me to sign it.
So
Are you particular, how many alternates you asked?
That's a great question. I think to ask for 5 to
I
match.
think the initial, when someone came in as the state, if memory serves me correct, at that time, they were looking at, they suggested 3, 1 from the ICO lake to be on that, if I'm not, of course, sometimes it's hard for me what I did yesterday, but I think at that time there was 3 and particularly 1 from the ICO lake, then it was a zoning area.
I don't have an objection to that. In progress.
I just think the more specific you can be with it, the better, rather than 5 or 4 or whatever it may be.
So you're gonna write it in that as what? Minimum of 3, a maximum of 5, with 1 being from the Hocko Lake.
Well, let me read to you the general statutes and then maybe that'll inform your motion here. 160-302 Board of Adjustment composition. A local government may by ordinance provide for the appointment and compensation of a Board of Adjustment. 5 or more members, each to be appointed for 3-year terms. In appointing the original members or in the filling of vacancies caused by the expiration of the terms of existing members, the governing board may appoint certain members for less than 3 years, so that the terms of all members shall not expire at the same time. We just dealt with that with the
Right.
2-year terms expiring. The governing board may appoint and provide compensation for alternate members to serve on the board in the absence of temporary disqualification of a regular member or to fill a vacancy pending appointment of a member. Alternate membership shall be appointed for the same term at the same time and in the same manner as regular members. Each alternate member serving on behalf of any regular member has all the powers and duties of a regular member. So where it says the same term at the same time and in the same manner as regular members, to me, that provides strong evidence that it would be best to have 5 and to ensure that one of them lives in the Hickory Lake zoning area.
Okay. So that's how we're gonna have 5, then ensure one of them to be in Hocko area and then $20 compensation for everybody.
So this is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners or a request of the Board of Commissioners. Now, they can change the criteria if they so desire. As far as the numbers are concerned.
Yes, theoretically they could. They would have to amend the UDO and maybe they said they thought it'd be a good idea to have 7 members, that they could do that.
Oh, okay, so they would have to amend it.
That'd be a
they
much
just-
longer process.
Oh, okay, so they're just gonna come back to us and be like, okay, we think you're gonna have 3, what y'all think?
They could reject your request.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, let's try that, let's see how it works.
Okay, so just for clarification, so the motion is to instruct me to draft a letter to the county commissioners, specifically asking for alternates to the Board of Adjustment, appointed in the same manner as the permanent members of the Board of Adjustment, and for a compensation of $20 per meeting, per attendee.
Correct. So back to Ms. Clapp.
Aye.
Mr. Chapman. Mr. Smith. And I.
Did you get Mr. Barnes?
He started off,
Okay,
we say. Okay, so, Ian, now. Okay, so what's my verbiage I have to use for remember how it says to be going to?
so you may ask the board members if they have any other items they wish to discuss, and if not, you will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so board members, anything else you have? discuss?
As a point of clarification, all four of the criteria that you gave us have to be met to get a variance.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's each and every variance states in every single county or municipality.
So in the case of today, Mr. Claggett had not been able to attend this motion would be in favor.
That's correct.
So what would have happened, would he have just had to, we would have set it for a later date, or,
Now, if the variance fails, then the petitioner can, or the applicant can petition the case to Superior Court.
okay,
And the hearing would go before Superior Court.
that if we didn't have enough people here,
Well,
vote.
no, that's if the variance fails.
Oh, it's better say, okay,
If you don't-
we don't have enough people.
If you don't have the quorum, then the agenda item simply moves to the next month's agenda.
Okay. Thanks. Were there any other items? And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Mr. Meredith, it's time to go.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Meeting adjourned.
Good job.
Okay, ma'am, we have to work on the verbiage.